of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start our meeting. So, good evening. Just to introduce people as we're in Zoom land and whoever's here. We have Christine Keller, City Clerk. We have John Machadi, Councilman. Stephanie Thibodeau, Councilperson. Michelle Flewelling, our Town City Clerk. City Manager. Sorry.
We're switching roles
Larry
tonight.
McDonough, City Councilor, Town Councilor, and Peter Lawrence, Town Councilor, and myself, Matt Townsend, the Council and Chair. So tonight, the first order is to actually have a presentation on the RJD appraisal, and we'll have Rob Duplessis for us. Anything you want to say first, Michelle? Or?
So, just as a municipality, we have been, and Rob's going to give you much more information than I have. The municipality has been saving for a reevaluation for our community. It does happen. We believe it's been since like 2006, 2008 since the last reevaluation. And Rob's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the stuff with our assessment ratio and why there's a need for that and all of those things. And this is just a great way for our municipal, the presentation he's going to give you is a great opportunity for us to do something in which you don't have to do it all at once and in 2-year time frame, and it's a kind of a different little approach, and I'll let him tell you more.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Robert Duplessis. RJD Appraisal is our company, and we've been your assessor here for the last 3 years, I think. We're here at least one day a week for the taxpayers to come in, any questions that we have, and we do all the assessing functions on an annual basis. But the other thing that we do is periodically we are obligated by statute to increase our assessments. The last revaluation happened, like Michelle said, 2006, 2008. So a company came in, went out and visited every property in town, had a listing of every structure in town, did a sales analysis of what property was selling for at that date. And in our software that we assess from, we assessed all property based on what those values were. And we've maintained that same value structure since 2006, 8, what have you. And that's fine. The idea, our concern, what our responsibility is creating equity. And it's all related to market value. So if we set these tables and charts up relevant to market value of that particular date, everybody's based on that value, which makes a fair tax in my world. That's our main concern. But at the end of the day, that ratio that we're at, that historical value that we've assessed people at every year, should also add that if a new structure is built, somebody added on, built a garage or built a brand new house, to keep things fair, we still go back to that 2008 schedule and price that new entity out of that same schedule. Again, that's where the fairness lies. But as time goes on, we get a report from the state every year with the newest sale dates that have happened in town. We list out our historical assessed value. And there's a ratio run between those two numbers. And there's minimums and maximums that we can be at every year. And this is a ratio as an average, if you will, over all sales. The minimum assessing standard we can assess that is 70% of market value. 70%. So our assessments are 30% low on average. The maximum is 110%. That was inflated a handful of years ago because the last time sale values dipped. And the way the market's been anywhere in the state, it's been pretty flat. So we've been able to use those 2008 numbers all of these years and still certify to the state of Maine that we are equal to market value. So we certify 100%. All of our exemptions we give to our taxpayers, veterans, homestead, blind exemptions, things like that are at the $25,000 that's allowable. But in the most recent years, we've kept those same values, but the market, as we all know, has jumped up considerably. So we start to see a gap between the assessed values and the most recent sale prices. And that's what's called the certified ratio. We declare every year to the state what our assessments are. And that basically comes from the report that we prepare for them. It isn't an absolute science, so there's a little bit of wiggle here. When we get a certified ratio statement from the state, we're allowed to certify a number up to 10% above that. That's just, for 2022, our ratio officially is 88%. We're declaring that we're at 88% market value, knowing in reality we're more like 80%, but that's typical. But Michelle looked it up this morning. I think she mentioned it to you at your last meeting. That's dipping from 88 to 78 this year. Getting very close to needing, getting to that minimum assessing standard. If we fail that standard, well, the state will come in, they can't mandate that we revalue. But what they can do is they can withhold some funding, mostly in the form of reimbursement we get from property tax loss for people that are in the tree growth program. So that could be in this town $40,000, $50,000 a year that we could lose any or all of that. So what I'm proposing is a little bit of a staggered approach, because a revaluation it's an expensive endeavor. It really is. To have it all 1 year, go out and do all of the functions of a reval, from collecting the data to studying the sales, updating the schedules, and having taxpayer hearings and things like that. So typically, about half of the cost of a revaluation is the time you spend going out, knocking on doors, collecting data. So what we're proposing is, and this is very common, I'm doing this in many of my towns now, where there's a little known law that says an assessor must see a property at least once every 4 years. There's no penalty if you don't. And we haven't been since the reval happened back along, except for building permits. If we know of something that's wrong or something that was missed, we will go pick up whatever that is that's changing for that year. But so I'm proposing we take the measuring and listing, the data collection side of it, and do that part of it over the next 4 years, starting this fall. Going out, we'll section off the town, we'll go out and collect the data, and what that does, again, it levels out the cost of a reval. And if I find any errors in the assessment, I go to somebody's house, they built a garage without a permit, they took the deck, made it part of the living room, irregardless if it should have been permitted or not, it's something that we missed, we will pick it up immediately, because it should be assessed now, because it just happens. So we would pick that up now, and then we would get a little more tax revenue from those entities that were missed for whatever reason. But in the meantime, we're not changing the schedule yet. So we are, again, going back to whatever new item that we find will be assessed at that 2008 schedule, just as if we found it originally. We do that over the course of 4 years, and the only compensation that we will get is the extra time that we spend doing those quarters. Once all 4 quarters are done, we then go into the next phase of the revaluation, where we will update our cost files based on the most recent market sales. We update our sales based on the market indicators, test those new schedules against those sales, make sure that we're comfortable with that our assessments are coming out mirroring what they're worth. Then going back in and doing a final review of every property from the road, implementing the new schedules for everybody. After that's all done, that takes out, all those things will take a 1-year process. The whole cycle, we do most of it throughout the winter. The next budget season, we have our new numbers, we'll have our budget, and as part of the agreement, we send out a taxpayer notice to every single taxpayer, letting them know that a revaluation has happened, this is the new value, and this is the new estimated tax. A lot of reval companies won't put in the tax, but everybody's concerned about the tax. So everything will be there, the new value, if they're getting an exemption, the exemption will be there, and their new tax estimate based on the budget that we have. And there'll be an opportunity for them to come in and meet with me and my staff one-on-one here, wherever in town works the best, to answer any and all questions that they have, any concerns. We try to clean those up to minimize changes that we have to make after the commitment. So again, really all of the functions of a revaluation just staggering over a 4-year period.
I think we're actually going to discuss that in a later
So,
business item.
yeah, you do have it on here as an action item for you to discuss. You can either ask Rob any questions you have now,
Yeah.
or you can wait till that item. That's completely up to you. And, yeah.
Yeah. So if you have some questions, if it's timely right now, if you're thinking.
Yeah, I got a few. Going to assess only like, what, 25% this fall. I'm wondering about, you going to contact the landowners first before you do that assessment, or?
Not generally, no. Contacting each individual taxpayer would be an enormous amount of money.
Okay, so you're just going to show up on the doorstep?
Yes, well, there'll be a lot of PR out there, you know, that we're gonna be out doing this project. The people in the town office will know what section of town we're doing. We're still kind of shy on going inside houses now, still with the lingering COVID effects. We have a record that was created in '09, and we're gonna take that record with us. So it's more of a matter of verification, not creating new records. So just because of the sheer numbers, we will be going out unannounced, but we do this in all of our towns. We get to a house, if it's not a good time for them, we'll absolutely make a scheduled appointment. But we're not going to be asking really to go inside any place,
Yeah, because
unless they want us to.
Because I know a lot of the residents, they, during the week, they work.
Yeah.
They're not available either during the day or sometime in the afternoon or night.
Right?
So that's just my concern, is encroaching on the landowner's time and property.
Right.
That's what I'm just concerned about.
Right.
And also, too, I'm concerned about, too, is the recent, some landowners had sheds made, not on the fault of their own, because of the PFAS filters. Well, is that going to be in part of the evaluation, or will that be part of a process that it's no fault of their own, they had to get it done?
Right. So we have our assessment technique, any assessment technique, we have to react to what the market is telling us. So if anybody's having these changes made to their property at no fault of their own because they have to do that, that isn't adding value, that's a maintenance item. We wouldn't do anything with that. What we look to see is property that's in that zone that does go on the market and sell. I anticipate it to sell for less than a comparable house in another part of town, and that value loss, if that's what the market is showing for properties in that area, we will have a lower
So you're going to go to the assumption of the value, the market value on the property?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, it's been speculative. Since this has come to light, we have hardly any sales in that area that we can go by. I think we had, last time I spoke with my agent, we had two. One was a land only, and one, it was actually more than our assessment. But I expect over the next 4-year cycle that we'll have plenty of information up there, and some of those decisions will be made for us.
And just to go back to Peter's original question, the plan that we have within the town office is that it's like surprise, they're here to reassess. Once we know exactly what the zones are going to be, like so we know in the first year we're going to do this area of the community. One, we would advertise that we're going to do this intentional, that this process is going on. We would do PR from the town office itself, but then we would also be able to say, if you live on this street, or this street, please know that they'll probably be assessing your property this year. That's a piece that we would still need to work out. But the intention is to make sure we do the PR stuff beforehand, so it's not a surprise.
That be on the town Facebook and website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
And we're very conspicuous when we're out there. We have identification on the clipboard we carry. Sometimes we talk about magnets on our cars, but if we go into a new neighborhood, even though the first house may be here to visit on our map, we're going to find somebody home, knock on the door, introduce ourselves, and explain to them, you're going to see us in our cars going around the street for the next couple of days, so that way there's no surprises, or minimal surprises.
Some other things we can do too, like we can do inserts in tax bills and that kind of stuff so that folks are aware, like not target, but like an insert to the entire town and say, this is the region that we're focusing on for the 23-24 year. There's a bunch of things we can do.
And I think the resale, a lot of houses in the last few years have sold. and I know several of them, just because I'm close to them. There was a house that we have it valued at $125,000, sold for $259,000.
Yep.
And there's a lot of that stuff out there that, it doesn't, unfortunately, when something sells, it's never readjusted.
Right, that's right. And the idea is and I've been speaking this for 3 years now, since COVID influence on the market started, we follow the market. If things start to go the other way, start to go downhill, the value starts to drop.
Yeah.
Our whole record system is all computerized, and we can change those instantly. And we had this case where we did a lot of revaluations, 2006, 2007, 2008, and by the time the market had dropped, 2011, 2012, we were lowering values throughout the state, even all the way around here.
Do you replace the aspect of a sale of a house and the replacement cost of a house? And it's two different animals. And
It is, and 99% of our assessments are the cost approach, where we will start off with the replacement cost of the house.
Gotcha.
But then we
Okay.
take the value down for physical depreciation, functional obsolescence, and then in the case of, like you were mentioning earlier, about that neighborhood that could be contaminated, that'd be an economic loss, so we do it that way.
okay.
We're trying to get down to that sale price.
So what website are you using to do market value? Because I know there's plenty of websites out there on current value of the residents.
We do our own.
Okay.
We take, so anything in town that's sold, real estate transfer, you get the deed, and you get your tax declaration, where you declare what the purchase price was. That becomes public record, and we use those indicators. Like that example, that property is sold for $259,000. We'll have our listing of that property, how big, how well it's constructed, how many bedrooms and bathrooms that it has. And from that, and the acreage that we have, and the location that it's in, we will create a schedule for land, a schedule for buildings. Putting those together will mirror that sale, go on to the next sale and stuff. We're looking for a trend. We expect to see all the rural property in town. I expect it to be pretty much the same value, and we'll have one value for the rural and different values for in town. It's just how it's always been in the past. I don't expect it to be any different here. But it's only sales in this town that's happened over usually a 3-year period leading up to the end of the project, looking for the long-term trend in the market. In some of my littler towns, trying to find enough data to draw a good conclusion.
Right, so the value, the market value that they have to use for these assessments, it is local sales. So we don't get compared to homes that are selling in Bar Harbor or Portland or any of that. It is local, which is why they have to create their own tax tables based upon what has actually happened here. And
Not doing the assumption on the
not everybody
website.
else.
Okay.
And Zillow, for Zillow, for example, they grab their data from us.
Yeah.
There's a big data dump that this nationwide company pays for from all towns. And they take all of our data and they draw their own conclusions, and they're usually pretty good.
Right, because all that information is available.
Correct.
On Zillow, if you
Yep.
go in there and.
Yep.
And now, it's a square footage assessment.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
Now, in this day and age, with Google Maps and all the information, you can't just do like an overlay and look for any differences in square footage and make this a very simple process?
Even that's not as simple as it appears to be. There's a lot of comparison you have to do, and you need a trained individual to do that. But now that once you realize there's something different, you have to go out and capture it properly. Because it is a cost approach, so it is driven on fact, square footage, and all the amenities that are in it. But not every house, there's different classes of houses.
Right,
So we have different qualities of homes, so nothing is better than just being on the property and doing the discovery.
Yeah. And this is a 4-year project.
Correct.
You're proposing, but it's going to be based on a 3-year sale assessment?
3 years for sale.
So the last 3 years?
Correct, the most recent 3 years. That part of the revaluation goes unchanged no matter how long we're taking to collect the data. A lot of my smaller towns, or towns that basically wait to the last minute and then revalue, we do that entire project all in one calendar year. But there's a significant cost to that, and this way, we're kind of evening out, but the end result's going to be the same.
Right, and I ask because the trend right now is for the values to go down.
That's why, yeah.
So the longer we can stretch this out,
Right.
the better for the taxpayers.
Could be, because we've been saying this is a bubble for 3 years now.
Right.
And it hasn't really been, what's holding the value dropping back is, there's nothing for sale.
Yeah.
Going until there's a handful of houses.
No.
That keeps the value up
Yep.
for a while.
But technically, it doesn't, from a taxpayer standpoint, we've got a budget, the budget is X amount of dollars. If a house doubles in its value, we're not going to double his taxes. His taxes will still stay the same. The amount that we tax will
Right.
drop down.
Right.
Yeah, when you, at the end of this whole project, we start to see what the entire town went up by.
Right.
That percentage, let's say it goes up by 50%. And I can look in and see everybody's individual assessment, and anybody who has over a 50% increase in their individual assessment, for whatever reason, they would most likely have a tax increase. But it's tethered a couple different ways. A lot of the property in town is very, very similar. We don't have a high-valued lake or anything like that in town. So the increase is going to be pretty much uniform across the entire town. Commercial, industrial could be a little bit different, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not a big amount of our value. So the other part is when you're doing a traditional reval over 1 year, all the things that were missed, we discover in 1 year. So people will get a tax increase just because of the assets that were added, missed, whatever reason that we didn't pick those up.
Right, and
we'll pick those up immediately, so it'll be even easier for the taxpayer. And we'll let them know, why did my value go up this year? Well, we were there, we discovered X, Y, and Z. Is it right? Did we miss those assets? You actually have those. For whatever reason, we didn't have them. We don't do any look back. There's no asks for back taxes or anything like that. We just fix it and move forward. So that'll help in any big shifts, for sure.
Okay. And what's the total amount for this?
Total amount is
$327,000.
327. Broken down, on my proposal, I have it broken down by year.
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah.
And that money is already set aside for this?
Yes, so we currently have $280,715 in our reserve account for revaluation. And this year, we're appropriating another $50,000 for that account. And then what we would do is if by doing this, we would continue to appropriate, right? So in case something happens. And then once your reval's done, you can kind of take a look at what this cost us, because it's going to drain this account, and you just still continue to put reevaluation money away. You just may not need to do the $50,000. We were at $20,000 quite a few years ago, about 3 years ago now. I think this is our 4th year asking for the 50 because we knew that this was coming. We had been watching our assessment ratio drop, and we knew that the only way to get that corrected, unless the market changed drastically, was to do the revaluation. And typically in towns like ours, because like you said, there are folks who do things and don't get permits. A lot of towns do find that they come close to paying for themselves with what you can pick up for value. We've picked up a bunch of value in the last couple of years, and it'll just hopefully continue to increase. And like John had said, at the end of the day, our budget's our budget. So if your property value double, then the mill rate gets cut in half. It's just kind of the way it goes. So. Yeah.
The quarter review project, we do that as a maintenance item in a lot of our towns. And you will find that when you figure out how many tax dollars we picked up over the years, and you compound that amount of tax, it will pay for itself. I have no doubt. And so it just kind of helps out with the cost. The revaluation it has to be done at some point, one way or the other. This way, it's easier on the budget, and some of the costs will be picked up by the things that should have been picked up. And we do all we can, but it's just human nature. It happens. Every town's in the same boat that way.
You said you're going to, I know, assess the buildings on the land, too. He's going to go by how many acres do they have?
Correct.
What if they were split up during that time frame and things like that?
Yeah, during our annual maintenance, as a regular assessment, when we have a lot split, we have to separate the lots, create the new assessments for them on an annual basis. So all of those records we think are pretty good. So whatever we have in our tax records right now for acreages and what's on the map is how we'll assess the land.
So just for a little bit of history, and for educational purposes, the Registry of Deeds, every time a deed is filed at the Somerset County Registry of Deeds for a property that's in Fairfield, whether it be a sale, a land split, any of that, quick claim deed, all those things, those actually get reported to us, and those go to our assessor on a monthly basis so that they know. And that's why it comes down to that. So the April 1st deadline that's coming up, so it's whatever has happened for sales or splits or any of that stuff is what they go off from for April 1st for the tax bill for this next coming year. So use that as a reminder. If you haven't filed for a homestead exemption, you've lived here in town for more than a year, please check and make sure you get that done. Or veterans exemption or any of those. But they get that information and those splits all the time. That's actively worked on a regular
Yeah,
basis.
because I know there's a few residents, well, actually out in my area, out Fairfield Center and Shawmut, property destruction or contamination, because I know you can't do, you just do the square, the acres, not any contamination or destruction of the property, correct?
Just like we have using the cost approach to our buildings, replacement cost, depreciation for physical, functional, and economic, if there's something about the property that detracts its value, usually it's topography, wet, swampy, buildability questions, we have a mechanism of taking value away from the land as well. So if this comes to fruition and we have some good indications, whatever those sales data points are telling us, we'll implement those percentages of reduction on the land as well.
Okay.
And there's already things in place now that it's like, so much for the base homestead property acreage, so much for road frontage, so much for rear land for the first 10 to 20 acres, and then the next 20 to... Those kind of tables are already in place now on people's land. It'll just be a matter of seeing whether or not what the value is that's there, is it comparable to the market today?
And changing those tables most
Right.
likely.
All right,
Yeah.
no, just one more quick, I just want to touch on one more thing I heard you say. You have somebody that's available one day a week at the town office now,
He's usually there on Fridays.
on Fridays?
Yeah,
From the whole day?
The whole day.
the whole day.
Okay, and the reason why I ask is because there's going to be a lot of taxpayers, as soon as this comes to light, that are going to have a lot of questions.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's,
Yep. And if they become, that is our earmarked day for people who, we usually have to schedule, people come in to see us with this specific question. But if there becomes a lot of people with questions like that, we will absolutely come down again and talk to whoever we need to speak to and explain to them how the process works.
right. Or
Yeah,
maybe if you would entertain the idea of maybe like some kind of a community question and answer
Yeah, we could do an
thing.
informational meeting. We
I
could
mean,
do all kinds of things.
if a lot of people have questions.
Yep,
And I think there'll probably be more
absolutely. Yeah.
questions after you have the appraisals.
Usually the
That-
questions come in after it's done, not before.
Right.
So
But certainly we
that's
can, yeah.
typical, but yeah, so we do have someone in the office. Typically, it's every Friday. And what is great about that is that there's actually a sign-up sheet at the front counter. So if during the course of the week you come up with a question, you simply call the town office, they'll put you on the list. If you can't come in and see him on Friday, if you leave your phone number, he'll get back to you. He can either email you, call you, that kind of stuff. They're very flexible like that. And sometimes he picks up extra days here and there depending on what's going on. But typically it's every Friday that they're in the office, the full time that the office is open.
And usually our extra days would be, this time of year, all the building permits that were issued, we will go look at them to see what was done, and we keep them open if somebody's building their house. April 1st is our big day. If somebody's building a house and it's half done April 1st, their tax bill will be for half the building this year, and we'll go back next year and pick it up. And so we keep the building permit open until satisfied, or we're told that they no longer
Yeah.
are viable.
Right.
So we do all we can, but,
Thank you for all the information.
all right,
I appreciate it, Robert.
all right.
Any other?
Thank you.
Very good. So we'll move on to our first order of business, which are public announcements. Details may be found at www.fairfieldme.com. Number one, on April 12th, 2023, there will be a public hearing at the Fairfield Community Center to hear public comments on the annual town budget meeting warrant. So again, April 12th, 2023. Nomination papers for MSAD number 49 school board became available on March 6, 2023, and are due by April 14, 2023 for the June 13, 2023 election. Please contact the town clerk for details. And then heavy loads limited roadway signage has been posted throughout the municipality. Please contact Public Works with any questions. The second order of business, public hearings. I have none listed. Third order of business are public comments limited to 3 minutes. Members of the public may speak to the council or request opportunity to speak on a specific item that is on the agenda, or may email comments to the council at info@fairfieldme.com by 4 p.m. day of the meeting. Submitted contact may be read aloud at this time. Do we have any public comments? All right, moving on to the fourth order of business, reports from staff and committees. The town manager report is first.
All
Michelle?
right. So, March 9th, the Thursday after your last council meeting, I did attend the KSTD trustees meeting. I did receive clarification at that meeting regarding our 23-24 assessment and potential for any additional fees. We can talk about that more when we talk about the sewer budget coming up later in the agenda, but basically KSTD, if there's going to be any additional fees for sludge, are going to try to absorb those throughout the course of the next fiscal year, and if need be, add them on to our 24-25 assessment. So we were good to go with the numbers we had. Casella was at that meeting that day, as well as the representatives from Huhtamaki. They are working on finding additional sources of bulking material for the sludge disposal issue. It's going to be monitored on an ongoing basis. The initial emergency, the stabilization that they were concerned about in their slope at Juniper Ridge has been settled. So that was a good meeting to go to and get all of those things done. On the 13th of March, I did spend the day in Augusta looking to testify on LD 148, which the act to allow detention of juveniles for certain acts. We ended up ultimately just submitting written testimony. I submitted for myself and on behalf of the police chief because he was in training all day. I was not able to physically testify. They didn't end up taking up that bill until 6 o'clock at night, even though we were there at 10 a.m. And it was first one listed on the agenda, but there were some residents from Fairfield there who also were looking to testify. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 that stayed around until 6, but most folks submitted written testimony. There was a workshop on that LD today. The police chief was able to attend that in Augusta. The LD itself has been tabled. They'll be looking to work with, I believe, other committees and departments to hopefully come up with funding to provide services to juveniles before the detention process, but we'll see how that flushes out. I have heard that the headlines in the news this evening were not quite accurate about what the bill was about, but Tom did suggest to the committee when he was there today that they actually go back and review the town council's October meeting when the community was here, and I believe the link to that, the YouTube link to that meeting was being sent to one of the committee members to share with the committee so they could understand what was going on in our community. I know Rockland was there again today too, so we'll see how that goes. Also on the 13th, one of the reasons why I couldn't stay was that the budget committee did meet that night. They were able to finalize their 23-24 budget, so all of those pieces were done, and the mailer was finalized, and that hopefully is going out in the mail by the end of next week, so everybody will have that. On the 16th, Councilor Thibodeau and I were able to meet with the Public Works Union for contract negotiations. The negotiating team had previously met. Unfortunately, Councilor Bishotti was still stuck on his way back from Florida. And also on the 16th, we had the KRDA annual meeting, and the budget was approved as presented. That was here. The 21st, which was yesterday, I did attend the KVCOG Board of Directors meeting. They're getting started on their new budget process, and there'll be some other information that we'll talk about later on in the meeting regarding KRDA and some projects. I mean, for KVCOG and some projects. And that's it for me.
Any questions? Thanks, Michelle. Committee reports?
Well, the Economic and Community Development Committee will be meeting the first Tuesday in April here in Council Chambers at 3:30.
Which is the
April 4th.
3rd,
4th.
4th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fourth.
Hang on, folks. Effort. It will be the 4th.
Fourth.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The 5th order of business, the consent agenda. These items are considered routine or standard business and therefore will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests prior to consideration of this portion of the agenda, which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered next on the agenda. Item 2331, order that the Fairfield Town Council hereby waives the reading of and accepts the minutes for the meeting number 2023-05 held on March 8th, 2023. Item 2332, order that the Town Council hereby approves the Treasurer's Warrant Number 99, General Fund, in the amount of $236,234.44, not limited to, but including Morton Salt, the Maine Bond Bank, and Motor Vehicles, and O'Connor GMC. Item 2333, order the Town Council hereby approves and signs the sewer certificate of commitment in the amount of $154,864.50 for third quarter fiscal year sewer billing for the period of 1/1/2023 to 3/31/2023.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? The 6th order of business, to take action on the following items of business as read by the council chair. Item 2334, order that the town council hereby approves and authorizes the town manager to sign the RJD appraisal revaluation contract in the amount of $327,000 to be expended from the revaluation reserve account.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Do we have discussion? I think, Michelle, if you can reiterate what you said about what we have this money set aside so we can look at that?
Do. So we've been saving that for some time. So we currently, our balance in our reserve account as of the end of December, which included this year's appropriation, was in the amount of $280,715.17. This year's budget request coming up for 23-24 has an additional $50,000 in it, which will more than cover the cost of this contract. And then, of course, reevaluation reserve is something that stays in your capital reserve accounts over time. We may very well get to the point where you're not going to have to raise it at that $50,000 rate. Like I said beforehand, for many years it was at $20,000, and we increased it to $50,000 in the actually, it was just last year. It was just in the 22-23 budget that it went to 50, because we were anticipating the need to have a reval done,
Yeah.
knowing that our assessment ratio was dropping.
Yep. Very good. Thank you, Michelle.
And don't take this the wrong way, I mean, no offense to, what was the process? Was this put out to bid?
Nope.
No.
No, it wasn't. It would happen through conversation with Rob and about what we have going on and watching our assessment ratio over the last couple of years and knowing what the market was doing. And we just discussed it, and he put the process together to give it to us.
Oh. All right, I was just curious as to,
Nope.
you know,
Where they were our existing assessor, we just didn't put it out to bid.
and that's,
We could,
that's
but we didn't.
typical to spend 300 and something grand, not to put it out to bid to,
We certainly could put it out to bid if that's what the council chooses to do.
no, I'm asking the question, that's all.
So I don't know what we did the last time we did a reevaluation and how they worked it. So the town used to have a full-time assessor that worked 5 days a week. We don't have that anymore. So since we now contract with a firm and they provide these kinds of services, I just didn't put it out to bid.
I mean, do you remember, John, in 2008?
No.
You didn't have any part of that then?
No, that was not, our assessor took care of that at that point in time.
I mean, no, we can't have a full-time tax assessor for the price that you're charging. We can't do that. So, I mean, I think the number is fair. I just was kind of curious as to how we got there.
No, it was just a conversation over time, and how can we do it and fit it in with what we had for our budget, knowing that we didn't have the lump sum all at once.
Right.
I've worked in communities where we've done revals before. Both of the other communities that I've worked in, we did revals, but they were done over the course of 2 years, and the cost is higher, right? Because of the volume of staff that that company has to have in place to get it done that quickly.
So this is going to be paid in one lump sum or by every?
Overtime.
Overtime, okay.
Yeah, it's broken down that way in the
I
proposal.
was going to say, there was a chart there.
Yeah, in the back of the proposal, it's broken down that way.
25, 26 grand the first year.
It's 35,750 the first year.
750.
It was just a big amount, was
If
that?
you look at the
It's in the fourth year.
Look at the
Yeah.
last page.
Yeah, I see, I know that.
All right, good.
I just want to bring that up, just in case the residents want to know, we're going to pay that all lump sum or
Paid by.
by year, which I have it in my notes,
Yeah, if we don't have it done, it's going to cost us big bucks from the state.
We'll lose money.
before any questions
So we
get...
have a motion and a second,
We do.
and all those in favor? So item 2335, order that the town council hereby approves and authorize the town manager to sign the CAI Technologies Professional GIS Services Agreement for tax mapping updates as submitted in the amount of $28,850 to be expended from the ARPA Pandemic Relief Fund Reserve Account.
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second, do we have any discussion?
Yeah, you said 28, it's 25,000.
Sorry, I apologize.
It's all right.
25,850. Dyslexia.
Now, how does this work with the reevaluation? Or is this just the tax
This is
maps themselves with no properties on them? Like, this is just for the town website?
This is the software,
If somebody
correct?
wanted property information?
So what this is that we currently have tax maps that list all of, they're pieces of paper, and they're on our website, the pieces of paper. Every time we do a land split, it's manually changed on another piece of paper, actually it's a Mylar, at the mapping company. This is going to take that process and make it now that it'll be a GIS process, so it'll be digitally done. And what's on our website actually has to be put into a CAD file format by the folks that do our tax maps and then sent to CAI to put on our website. The folks at CAI are now able to do those mapping changes themselves, and they'll be able to do those instantaneously. So we'll get also those paper maps, but we'll also have the digital version, and what's on our website will be able to be updated as soon as they get the split, as opposed to waiting a year or sometimes two. So where we're at right now, we have the splits, they're drawn out, but our maps are not depicting what those changes have been. So this takes all of our existing work, which they have CAD files up to the last 2 years, plus the last 2 years worth of splits, and gets that all done and digitized. And then what we will eventually also be able to do with changing of this platform, because we already pay them annually to maintain the link on the website, we will be able to tie to these map and lots electronically building permits or septic designs or plumbing permits, all of those different things, so that information on a piece of property will hopefully be just as accessible as it possibly can be to people while sitting at home or also coming into our office. Makes life a lot easier.
Okay.
And I think spending the ARPA funds in this case are nice, not dealing with any taxpayer dollars, or our taxpayer dollars anyway.
Right.
To get this done.
Yep. And this was, a conversation that we had during the budget process.
Yeah.
This was a piece that we had put in there and felt that this was a good use of ARPA funds for this one-time project. The annual maintenance costs going forward are no different than what we were already projected to pay them on an annual basis. I mean, they'll go up only because they just inherently go up. But for right now, there's no plan for it to be any larger than what we pay now.
Great. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Item 2336, ordered that the town council hereby authorizes the town of Fairfield to accept the Homeland Security Grant for small unmanned aircraft system in the amount of $20,762 awarded to the Fairfield Police Department.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion?
Chief Gould is online, if you have any questions for
Oh.
him.
Sure. Chief, I think you had a nice description in there and reasoning, but if you have anything to say?
I don't believe I do, unless there are any questions for me. I think the description kind of detailed everything that we plan to use this for.
Two things from me, Chief. One is, I'm glad we've got that grant. And number two, is this an insured item? Because I'm wondering how, if it crashes or something, is it fully reimbursable?
It will be added to our insurance policy. They do have some recommended trainings that we have to do and some documents that we have to fill out, but it will go on to our insurance policy and it will be covered if any incident does occur.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question there, Chief.
Yes.
On the size of the drone, because I was reading through the descriptions, it can go in small places. How big is this drone? Is it a small size or talk about a big size?
It is not. It is over 249 grams, which requires a licensed pilot to fly it. I am licensed. We'll have two other department members that will obtain their licenses. It is probably 2 feet by 2 feet with a depth of maybe 8 or 10 inches, depending on the equipment that we have on it at the time that it flies. But it can fly inside a building. And the reason we chose this was twofold. One, it's US made. And number two is it can fly autonomously. So we can tell it to go into a location and videotape the interior of the building and it'll produce the video for us, and it also render a 3D photograph, and that's the main reason we really wanted it. We have some serious car crashes that happen in Fairfield, and we do have the state police that come in with a drone, and they will GPS, they'll lay out the crash scene with GPS data that's driven from the drone. This one will actually photograph the entire crime scene in 3D so that we can go back to the police department and review it later on or submit it to the courts for prosecution. But it's not a huge size drone, but it will fly internally inside a building.
How, flying how high? Because I know that by FAA regulations by a certain height.
Correct. You can fly up to 400 feet. We typically would never fly at that high, maybe 50 to 100 feet. You can fly at 400 feet unless you are over an obstruction. So if we're over a 400-foot building, we can fly 400 feet above the building. But then when we get past the building, we have to drop back down to the 400-foot level. So it would never go above 400 feet above the ground.
Every time you fly one, you have to let FAA know you're actually flying one, so we won't instruct with any air traffic?
We don't, because it's under the 400-foot level. In certain circumstances, we would be required to, if we were trying to fly into what's called Class B airspace, we would require clearance through the FAA, and we get that through an app that's currently on my phone and will be on the officer's phone when they're flying.
I'm done.
And so you have to have an aviation license for this, which you have, you said, correct, Chief Gould?
Yes, it is it's a drone pilot's license.
Right.
FAA issue.
And you also said you're looking at getting 2 additional officers licensed to fly this. What do you
Yes.
What's your anticipated costs for that? And is that coming right out of your budget? Or?
$200. It's probably $100 to $200 for them to get licensed.
Okay.
Roughly, yeah.
Because I wondered, because I knew that, like, the University of Augusta offers a course for this same type of licensing, which can, get fairly expensive. That's why I was wondering, but it's minimal cost then, is what you're saying.
It's a minimum cost for us, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not using it for technical, extreme GPS coordinate type of deals. We're not going to be using it for search warrants. We're not going to be using it for observation, things like that. This is more if we have a lost child and we need to search for a lost child, or if we have an adult that's wandered away, we have some means to get in the air and actually search a wider area with it. We can use it for that purpose as well.
Yeah. They found an elderly woman like that in a cornfield not too long ago, if I remember correctly. She was only like two rows in, but she would have been missed without the drone flying over. So, I mean, it's a good thing. I just was wondering about the total cost, but we're definitely not going to cry about $200 or $300. So.
I don't see it as being much more than that. I went through the program myself, and I don't remember how much it cost me, but I don't believe it was more than $100. But so 200 max, I would think.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So motion, second discussion, and so all those in favor?
Unanimous, thank you.
All right, the next is item 2337, order that the town council hereby approves the Mountain View Apartments 4/1/22 to 3/31/23 annual report filing in compliance of their affordable housing TIF district agreement with the town of Fairfield.
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Michelle, can you just fill us in so people listening?
Sure. When you have an affordable housing TIF in your community, this report is required for each one of those TIF districts. And there is a requirement within this report that the municipal legislative body must approve the report. So it's not anything that I fill it out, but it's not anything that I can approve it, so it does have to go before the town council for your approval. And basically what you're doing is you're just letting the folks at Affordable Housing down in Augusta know where they stand with regards to this TIF district and this affordable housing piece. So the Mountain Avenue Apartments, that is still under construction. They have a couple of floors that they've wrapped up. They do have one apartment that is completed. They did need to have one of those done by the end of the fiscal year in order to comply with some of the regulations. It's not anything that they were able to give occupancy on, but there is one that's complete, which is why it says that there's one here available, and the other 27 are currently under construction.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? And item 2338, order that the town council hereby considers and awards bid to Stanley Septic in the amount of $12,500 to facilitate sewer failure repairs on Water Street to be expended from the Public Works Sewer Capital Reserve Repair and Replacement account.
So moved.
Second.
Here, a motion and a second. Discussion.
The Public Works Director is online if you have any questions for him. But basically, as he explained in his memo, this had failed. The timing of this was such that when the bids came in yesterday, we were able to put this on your agenda as an emergency edition tonight. Just so you're aware, in the future, had this been like a day after your council meeting, because of the nature of this need for repair, this would have actually been sent to you as notification, but we would have approved it ahead of time and had to have you approve it after the fact, because it's time sensitive that this gets done, but not so time sensitive that they needed to immediately rip up the road.
So the work's been completed already?
It has not been completed
Not
yet.
completed?
Yeah, we've been working on figuring out, just in the last few days, and Bruce can explain it to you better, facilitating just exactly what the need was. We weren't sure whether if it was a blockage or not. During the investigation, they determined that the pipe's actually falling apart.
Any questions for Bruce?
So this has been happening a couple months?
Yeah, it's been happening for a couple of months, steady. It's a regular maintenance item that we work on because it's an older line that runs through the rear of properties, so we tend to it twice a year, but lately it's been plugging every week to every 2 weeks, and we've been pulling out pieces of clay tile, some ledge material. It's an old line, and it's affecting one of the property owners down there drastically.
And definitely looking at the two different amounts, and there's obviously one that you're going with, it's a little bit cheaper. I assume it's not everything in the description perfectly, but I assume they are very much the same as, it talks about the 3/4 inch stone and everything like that. So everything's the same specs.
That's correct.
When will this work be started if it's approved there, Bruce?
Yeah, hopefully next week.
Stephanie?
Bruce, if this is happening at one residence, what's to say the pipe itself isn't in bad shape for the extension of Water Street? Or have you taken the camera and gone and taken a look at it?
We cannot get into this sewer pipe with the camera because it's in such poor shape.
So therefore, you don't know the extent of the condition of the pipe?
The entire piece we would replace. It's 270 feet long approximately.
Yeah. Okay,
So we would replace it one end to the other.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, and, I mean, I like the fact you're using a local contractor to do this, as opposed to somebody out of town. They came in with a lower bid, which congratulations to them. And, I mean, this is how this is supposed to work.
Yep.
I mean, they're good guys, they've been here a long time. They do good work, so.
Very good. Any more questions? Great. Motion, a second, and discussion. So all those in favor? Thank you. Thanks, Bruce.
I bet you did, yes. You did me years ago, too.
So our seventh order of business, council workshop and other business. So the first one is number one is to discuss the sewer enterprise budget.
Can you receive the copy of their draft budget for 23-24? And just as a reminder, sewer, and then what's coming up next, Crossroads TV, does not work the same as our regular general fund operating budget. Sewer and Crossroads TV are enterprise funds, which means they are funded through fees and not taxation. So these don't get approved in the same manner, but other than that, they come to council and council has final approval. So what you have here, like I said, we did find out that KSTD that fee is going to stay as they had submitted. So with that increase, that is our largest increase in this budget for this year. There's the slight increase in the wage pieces. What we did find is, because what we were worried about was whether or not we were going to need to do a fee increase. The way things stand right now, it appears as though what our projected revenues could be based upon our projected expenses, revenues would be about $36,000 more than expenses. So at that point, that doesn't really trigger the need for a fee increase. However, because we don't know what is going to happen with this sludge piece, what we're going to be doing in the process of monitoring that is that if it looks as though we could be looking at something drastic for next year, we may have to have a conversation this summer, this fall, in regards to changing our fee structure. But as of right now, it appears as though we should be just fine.
Nice. Okay. Any discussion? Good.
So what will happen is this will just come back to you for approval at your next meeting.
Yep. The next one is to discuss the Crossroads TV budget.
Chad's playing double duty. He's running cameras and back and forth, but he's here for any questions that you have. There is a substantial change in this budget this year. While it is listed as part-time staff, actually what we're doing is proposing that we change that to the funding structure so that it could be full-time staff. Chad has been advertising since early last fall for someone to fill our part-time position with no applications in sight. So what we're wondering is if maybe if we change this to full-time, put some benefits with it, we'd actually be able to get someone to come into that position, because when you have just one operator, which is the director at Crossroads TV, it does limit us as to the number of things that we can actually do. It impacted our ability to cover sports programs this winter, and we'd really like to not have that happen in the future.
I have the, thinking about like internship.
Yes. Yep.
Like going to area colleges that have media and things like that, try and do like a part of their schooling or internship?
Yep, but
So-
unfortunately, at this point in time, internships are even paid. Most times you can't get an intern that you don't pay for. And so, but we have recently, in fact, I've actually had conversations with television news stations, if they knew anybody who knew how to run editing equipment, cameras, that kind of stuff. We put some information out and had a contact with some folks at, is it Hassan?
Hassan.
Hassan College, also, and their program. So what we're thinking is if this is what we're going to do, we'd be able to advertise before school gets out, so to know that that would be able to be in place by July. Because it's twofold, right? So if we're able to produce this kind of document, these productions, we're also able to get sponsors that offset the cost of those. But if you can't, then we're reliable solely on our franchise fees and what municipal recording money that we have and our smaller projects, and we'd like to do some bigger.
So all this whole budget, so all the franchise fees?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%. There's no taxation in here whatsoever. Franchise fees, because the revenue is at the bottom and over on the back side of the page, projected franchise fees, and then also the surplus that we have in our prior year franchises that we haven't used. So it's 100% funded. There's no deficit to it. It's drawing off the surplus accounts that it has, and the revenue projection to come in. The interesting piece with franchise fees is that if you are an individual that has Spectrum cable at your house and you have cable television, you pay a franchise fee.
Right.
If you don't have cable television but have Spectrum internet that comes in across the same equipment and the same cable, you do not pay a franchise fee. So as folks start going towards more streaming as opposed to actual cable television, that is money lost by the station. So we need to enhance what our revenue stream is and not be solely reliable on franchise, because eventually, with the way things go, unless they change the legislation and we actually get franchise for regardless whether the cable's there or not, not based on subscription, we'll need to generate other additional revenue sources.
Any more questions, comments? Anything Chad can answer for us while he's here?
Not that I've got, not now.
Thank you.
All right, great.
The next item would be discussing the climate survey.
Okay,
So Stephanie, do you want to lead on this?
I shall. This is, you have 3 sheets. One is the resolution page, and then there are 2 sheets as a result of the survey that was taken from March 1st to March 15th. We started it off with an evening session, and only Larry McDonald and I showed up, along with the manager and a representative from KVCOG. So in discussing how we could do more outreach for the survey, we decided that we would try to get more public involvement. We decided to go with a survey. So this whole survey was based on climate change resiliency. And I know it's a hot topic, but we're looking at how we can better cope with the changes in the weather for our citizens. So we had a total of 8 responses for those 2 weeks. And of those 8, as you can see before you, 37% of them were parents and 75% were homeowners. But of most interest of those 8, if you look on the second page, what is important for your community to address in the long term: create a healthy environment for citizens with fresh air initiatives like walking trails, bike paths, etc. Provide sufficient housing, increase economic development along the Route 201 corridor, continue to provide and enhance safe infrastructure for our citizens, more small business growth, creating a low-carbon town, providing citizens with multiple safe and effective ways to get around town without reliance upon privately owned cars, extend our public water to bring businesses to town, having people care about the environment and sustainability, sidewalks, do something about PFAS in the water. However, I am not sure what is being done about it, and these are the actual comments that were written down. What actions can your community do to increase resilience to natural hazards and climate change impacts? Have a safe gathering place for citizens during emergencies, cold, hot weather situations. Continue to evaluate conditions of roadways, ditches, sidewalks, and create a long-range plan for remediation. Educate the citizens about resilience to natural hazards and coping with climate changes. More recycling, more solar panels on town office, etc. Climate change must be addressed, and the best way to accomplish this would be to construct protected bikeways, sidewalks, and roundabouts whenever and wherever technically feasible. Upgrade the under drains. They worked better with open ditches. Divest in fossil fuel. Make it easier for poor people to recycle. Have some kind of program to help the elderly with high heating costs. Being a good role model and doing easy things like making sure that we can convert our heat pumps or protect farmland. And those were the actual comments of those that had filled out the survey. So what does this mean for us? Last year, Governor Mills came out with Maine Won't Wait, which is a climate change resiliency project. The monies that are available are coming through the state. In order to participate, we need to enroll. In order to enroll, we need 3 things. 1, we need to have a self-evaluation done. The information gathered from the survey will help with the formulation of the self-evaluation. We need to have public involvement and have evidence of that, hence the survey. The third thing we need is to have a resolution that supports our initiative as a municipality to become more resilient as the weather changes, and how we can help to ensure the safety of our citizens. You have before you a resolution, and I will read it for the public, and it's a Community Resilience Partnership Resolution. Be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Fairfield, acting as the municipal officers as follows. Whereas, shifting seasonal temperature and precipitation patterns threaten local natural ecosystems, economic activity such as tourism and seasonal recreation, including winter sports and other outdoor activities, and public health due to increased incidence of heat-related illness and tick-borne illnesses such as Lyme disease. Whereas, the town of Fairfield experiences intense rainstorms, riverine flooding, ice jams, drought, wildfires, high heat and cold temperatures, and other natural hazards, and seeks to better prepare for future conditions. Whereas the town of Fairfield is prepared to demonstrate leadership in reducing energy use and greenhouse gas emissions, and increasing the resilience of people, infrastructure, and businesses. Whereas addressing climate change will present economic opportunities for the town of Fairfield, as well as opportunities to invest in the public good and cost-saving practices. Whereas the town of Fairfield has completed the Community Resilience Partnership's Community Resilience Self-Assessment and List of Community Actions, held a community workshop on the 9th of February 2023, and provided a community survey from March 1st to March 15th, 2023. Whereas the community workshop and survey prioritizes Fairfield's planning for community and infrastructure resilience, will protect people, preserve businesses and the local economy, and reduce the impact and costs of natural disasters, and the following action items. Be it resolved, the town of Fairfield commits to participating in the Community Resilience Partnership, which supports community leadership in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and increasing resiliency to extreme weather and climate change impacts. Be it further resolved, the town of Fairfield designates Town Manager Michelle M. Flewelling and Kennebec Valley Council of Governments to coordinate planning, implementation, and monitoring of energy and resilience projects, and to be the primary point of contact to the Community Resilience Partnership. What is needed now, after discussion, would be a motion to accept this project and the resolution so that we can move forward and take advantage of monies that could be available for us as a town. And so, any questions or comments?
I make a motion, we accept the resolution presented to us.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
No, I agree with most of it, except for the back end. We can try to eliminate everything we can. That's not going to have 1/10 millionth of a,
But we can try to do what we can.
I think,
And not
you know, but
eliminate
it's adjusting our living aspect, because that's the only thing that's going to adjust to climate change. They can shut every factory down in the world, and it's not going to make any difference. Happens every 100,000 years, and there's nothing we can do about it. But as far as adjusting the living aspect of it, yes, because that's what's going to have to be done as we move on further in life.
And that's how we can help
Yeah,
ourselves to
absolutely.
cope with
Yep.
the changes in the weather.
Yep.
And hopefully set Fairfield up and to be solid and sustainable going forward.
Yes, I agree.
Probably after we're serving this council. So any more discussion?
Just a couple things. Your motivation here, more than, is there's 2 grants available at $50,000 each, correct?
We are able to apply for, first of all, the 2023 grant structure has not been updated yet. We're just in the enrollment process, and we have to be approved. If approved, we do have 2 opportunities within the year to apply for $50,000 grants, 2 $50,000 grants. And one is this spring, and the other one is in September. And if we partnered up with another municipality with the same goals in mind, then that would be $125,000 for our municipality twofold.
Okay. Now, who is going to determine the goals that you have to hit to qualify for the grants?
Well,
'Cause
that's one of the things that we would be discussing as a council.
It's the state, so the
If-
state
yeah.
sets those parameters.
Because I'm gonna, myself personally, and you've done a lot of work on this, you have, and it's all good stuff, but if the town of Fairfield has to sell their soul to Augusta for $100,000, I'm not interested. I mean, I'm
We're
sorry.
Selling our souls.
Yeah,
Every
it's an
time they
opportunity,
put-
Larry.
Every time they offer money in the form of a grant, free money, there's so many stipulations that come with it.
But that's no different than any other grant process that you go through. You have to have the initiative, you have to have the goals, the objectives set in mind, you have to have the implementation, and then you have to have the follow-through to be accountable for any monies that you're being given.
And that's what I'm asking. What are the stipulations that are going to be put
You have
with
to tell
this?
them what was done each year. This is from what I remember, so help me if I forget anything, Michelle. What you have accomplished within that year, the costs they want to know. They also want to know how, basically just how it's working. It's like a paragraph that you would have to send in.
So this project doesn't, in most cases, doesn't require a match. There are already some predetermined categories. So for instance, as an example, the project that we're thinking about applying for the initial $50,000 is that we know we have a large culvert stream crossing project that's going on the Green Road. It's already been approved by the state for that portion of it, so we have a match, which right now is listed at about $95,000. What we would like to do is see if we can get because this is an eligible project, get the $50,000 to reduce our $95,000 match down to $45,000. That's all we're looking at doing at this point in time. It could be something as simple as we get a generator. What you have to do is you have to report to the state what it is that when you file for the grant, no different with anything else, you tell them what it is you're looking to do. They determine whether it fits within the parameters of their grant that they've already set up. And then once the project is done, you do have to report to them what you've done, what you spent the money on, that kind of stuff. What we're not doing is we're not saying, well, we reduced carbon emissions in the town of Fairfield by X amount. That's not what we're doing. They're predefined projects that you would already
Right,
go out get.
and that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, no, and
That'll
that's
come
not-
with
that's not what this
stipulations
does.
for this.
No.
That's why I was
That's not what
asking
this
the
does.
question.
That's not what our goal is.
Right, but
Some
I'm
municipalities
curious.
have got that goal, based on what I've read
Right,
in the
some of them do.
materials.
It's gonna
But
help
they,
But that's not us.
they might
Right,
have a-
and
they
that,
might have a-
and I knew that. That's why I was asking the question the way I did.
Yeah.
They might have a community bus or something like that, so they're switching over to electric, or whatever they're trying to do,
Yeah.
that might be a goal. But in our case, we're looking at infrastructure, so we're looking at, can you turn this into a warming center? Can we have a generator paid for it because we have extreme weather? Can we look at, because we're having more road washouts because of extreme weather?
Just in
Can we
case a
help some of
natural
that?
disaster happens, but we got it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, so each municipality has their own goals. Their location within the state also can help to dictate, for instance, people down along the coastline with the rising ocean waters, their needs are going to be different than what ours may be.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
what you were referring to for follow-up, what being accountable to, it's not a big undertaking. It's compared to everything else that's going to take place.
Okay,
To me, it's like a paragraph.
all right. I just,
And having the paperwork to back it up. Yeah, that's it.
and KV-COG administers that process, right? So that's why they have the beginning planning grant, and they're part of all of that going forward, too.
Yeah, to me, if the money's out there, if we don't go for it, somebody else is going to get it.
as long as there's not a lot of stipulations tied to it.
Right.
That's what I'm concerned.
I have not gotten that impression, no. No.
And if we don't.
No, I don't think
And if there are, we can always choose not to accept it.
Exactly.
So I just want to make sure I have the motion correctly. I've got a motion by Lawrence, seconded by Townsend, to accept and adopt and sign the Community Resilience Partnership Resolution as presented.
That's the piece of paper we have.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
It's unanimous, thank you.
Nice. Thank you, that worked.
Thank you.
From now, we have actually discuss proposed working groups, state municipal policy requirements. Michelle, do you want to speak to that? Do you want me to read?
So-
You're so much better at this.
We put this on here because after your discussion at your last meeting, you discussed the possibility of putting some work groups together on various different projects, whether it be public safety building, what have you, and I believe, Mr. Chairman, you tasked the rest of the group of thinking about things that you wanted to discuss.
I did.
So this is here. We did submit to you, we put together the section of MMA's municipal officers manuals that deals with other boards, committees, and commissions, basically on how those are created. You do have some boards and committees information that is also in your administrative policies. You do have some specific rules when it comes to a building committee.
Yes.
So that's there, and yeah, that's where we're at.
Very good. Actually, John, do you have any thoughts along that line?
No, okay, not at this point.
Stephanie?
My thoughts are, or thought, is that we need to have a building committee to review the conditions first of the buildings that we have, to establish a need, and then from there, decide on how a building would be used, and that would be, do we have one great big building, safety building or not?
Because I went on Skowhegan, the sites that actually had the buildings. I actually wanted to cite on the procedures, what they needed to do.
Okay.
And I think that's actually a great question. I talked about this with Michelle, getting some advice. One of the things is we have to determine, like, where are we? If we already determined the fact that we need the building, then I think we go to, let's start exploring start exploring the actual building process. If we are still in the determination, do we need a building? I think that's what you're talking about, Stephanie,
Right,
and probably
right.
you, Peter, to actually get that survey and to figure out where we stand and what our deficiencies are.
Right. So if you look on.
Michelle, sorry.
So the building committee, so part of the administrative policies, number 3 under building committee, it specifically says, the building committee shall review the proposed project for need, usage, design, estimated cost, and any other purpose set by the town council. So those things are already dictated in what those.
But in
would
that
be.
order.
Yeah, so in what the biggest thing is that you want to remember with any committee that you formulate, when a new committee is created, you need to know what is it that you want that committee to do, right? What direction, what are you having them perform for you? And then what is the time frame? Because that is the other piece of all of this too. Because there's nothing worse than saying, well, maybe we should do some thought about expansion of cemeteries, maybe. And then put a committee together and then see what that turns into, and know that you've got 5 years down the road and somebody's arguing about maybe you should pick up a piece of property. That's not, you want to make sure it's clear, so that way the folks that do come in, one, you advertise it so that they know what they're signing up for, they know what the time commitment is, all of that, because it is difficult for us to get volunteers. So just the more concise you can be about whatever you put together, the better off we're going to be.
Yep. So on that end of that, one of the things that on the building committee talks about for any proposed new building or addition. So at this point, actually, we're actually a step before that. So we haven't gotten to the building. So,
Right.
So there are some restrictions on who can serve on that building committee, but an exploration committee, in my mind, would be different.
The
Because-
problem,
Because we're looking at we're trying to research, are there deficiencies?
yeah, so the issues you have is that, so there's another section in here, okay, so the order to avoid conflicts of interest, no committee member shall be allowed to bid on or financially benefit from the project. So it becomes difficult to have people, because it also then says, but it also says you have to have someone who has a background in construction. Members should have a background in the construction field. So basically what you're saying is everybody that lives in town that has a background in construction, you'd like them to volunteer for this project, but to know that if you do, you will not work on it, right?
And you're
So
bid on it.
will not build it.
Your company cannot bid on it. So that is another piece of it that makes it a little bit more tricky.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I guess that's probably what you need to try to figure out is where are you at? Are you at the point where the building committee needs to be formulated because you just can't go any further? I mean, do you think there needs to be an assessment for a need? Okay?
We have our feelings, but I
Right.
think having an assessment and a need and have it
Or
shown.
get the department heads involved too.
Well, they could be part of the committee.
This actually says they have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we really need a needs assessment established first. To me, that would be a citizen group looking at our buildings to establish a need, to see if, for instance, the police department, we know that building is it's not in A1 shape. So we need to have people go in there, talk with the chief, evaluate what it is. Same thing for the police department, town office, and then do a needs assessment. What works well, what is in need of improvement. And probably cost of maintenance would be worked into that, which Michelle could give us. So,
Yeah. So I think.
just take that first.
So your idea would be a building committee, so more of an assessment.
You're right.
I have a question too. We had a previous assessment on the police station, correct, Michelle?
Correct?
Well, what, 2 or 3 years ago?
This year, dear ago.
Well, they do it annually, but
Yeah.
I think it was 3 years ago
3
that the
years
initial
ago.
one was done.
We started, yeah.
Can we still use that, or we need a more assessment, because since it's deteriorated?
So you can use that based upon, but all that's going to tell you is the performance of the building, right? Is it still sinking? Is it not? That's all that's going to tell you.
Right.
That's not going to tell you whether or not so your needs assessment needs to be, is it because it's outgrown its space? Is it not, functionally operational, or is it, that becomes the other part of that.
Right.
Stephanie, do you have any other ideas of?
How many
working
people are
groups?
involved in that building,
So I-
first of all?
So I
Has to be
would,
added.
so I guess I would say, my thought, and I don't mean to try to, I would think about do we have 2 or 3 committees that we want to do? And then I would think tonight what we want to think about is actually if each one of you, or however you want to start the process, I'd love to have you like put together a proposal that we can do. That's just my thought along that line.
Okay.
Brainstorming.
Right.
Brainstorm.
That's what I would suggest.
So, no matter, first of all, the ground rules are, you can't have more than 2 counselors on any committee.
Right.
We know that, especially through the Economic Committee.
Yep.
So that, to me, the 2 counselors that want to do this should be putting together the proposal.
Exactly what I'm,
And in that
Spot on.
proposal, there should be the time frame. There should be how many people are needed on that committee, how many people, what buildings are going to be looked at and assessed. Areas of assessment need to be outlined. I hope you're getting this, Christine, because I may not remember it all.
It's a great thing about Crossroads TV, you can just
Yes,
watch.
that's true.
to be honest, I mean, I think that's a lot of where, where you and another counselor, if you're interested in doing it, can actually put that whole kind of proposal together and start the process.
I'm a firm believer in not having to reinvent the wheel.
Heck, yeah.
So my first thing would be to go on the internet and see what other communities have done a building committee assessment, so, yeah.
Skowhegan's got a nice one.
Yeah.
At the Dares and so Yarmouth and things like
Yeah,
that.
and then we tailor ours according to what we need for our town.
Excellent.
But
Are there other areas you think there should be a working group on?
the main thing would be, for me, would be the building situation, because I'm real, for years, I've been very concerned
Police?
with the police
Yeah.
station. And also the town office is outdated and not very
Look
safe.
at the fire station.
The fire station, that's a whole different ball of
Yeah,
worms,
but-
because we've got before us coming up the talk of an ambulance.
Yep.
And
that's me.
if that's the case, then
Yep.
there's another reason
We
to
can
assess
look
the
at
building.
the stipulations too of what is needed for buildings. If it's a separate one for public safety or a government
Right,
access building.
yeah.
So that's your one? that's your
That
main
is the only
focus?
thing that I think we should only focus on one committee. We can't get people to even do a survey, so.
Peter, what do you think? Do you have a working group idea?
A working group.
Yep.
Get a brainstorming going and then come back.
Yeah, so, I mean, would your primary focus be building assessment, or in this case? Okay, cool. Any others?
No.
Okay.
No.
Larry?
Yeah. I feel that a community engagement committee should be the first priority. So we can get some people involved, kind of get some information flowing, get some ideas, and that would kind of be here, and then you could form some subcommittees below that, get people interested. I mean, and almost every nonprofit that I know of, that's a really big focus, community engagement. I think the towns should be run this on that same idea, in doing everything they can to engage the members of the community. So I would like to see a lot of focus on that.
And on my end, I have not, I think PFAS is a major issue in our town, and water supply. So do you focus on PFAS mitigation and sustainability moving forward, how to use contaminated lands, and how do we work on that? How do we deal with the state that maybe, where there are issues coming that I've been trying to start working on their proposals? And then also, do you even tie in water supply? Maybe just keep that separate. But I think PFAS still has to be a major issue for our town. So I guess I would propose, I think actually these 3 working groups would be tremendous. And I would love to see, so I love the idea of the community engagement, so that's another one I hadn't thought of, so I think that's great. I think obviously we talked about buildings. I mean, if Stephanie and if you and Peter want to start on that process and start trying to put that formulate, pretty much honestly what you talked about tonight, you're already like light years ahead of where I'm at. So great job. And the same thing, I think, with Larry and myself, I mean, I think that's where we start working on, I mean, if somebody wants to serve on community engagement, great. If somebody wants to serve on a PFAS committee with me, great, but we can work to kind of flesh that out and what that looks like. Yes, ma'am.
Question. So are you envisioning, so what we'll do is, when you come back for your next meeting, the committee, basically, it's like, this is the title of the committee.
Right.
This is what it will be due. That's what's going to come back to you, and,
Correct.
these are the members, that kind of stuff.
And
that's going to come
how-
back to
how
you at
do
your
we-
next meeting, and you'll approve whether that's exactly what you want for a structure
Yeah.
for that committee.
Okay.
And then at that point, then we'll advertise the committees and go out for that membership.
Exactly.
Right.
I think so.
Right. So,
that's-
so yeah, Stephanie, yours is pretty close to done. We'll
Yeah.
just take it from Christine's minutes.
Yeah, no, that's great. Spot on. So Larry, if you want to work on fleshing yours out a little bit, and I will do the same on mine.
Yeah, that's no problem. I mean,
Again, kind of what the committee, same way, like what that membership is and what the true goal is and time frame. So I think those are my issue, membership,
Yep.
goals and time frame.
Goal, membership.
And John, what would you like to work on
I work with
with Matt?
Matt on
Super, I'd love to have it. Be great.
not being a construction expert, and going into the building codes.
And Larry, I'd be happy to.
yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. I really appreciate that. I feel, I know this is extra work, but it actually gives us some goals and some things we're working on, and I think some things that can be accomplished. So I appreciate everybody's effort and thoughts on this. I think it's be helpful for the community going forward. Nice. I think, my goodness, I think we may have reached it. Other council business. So, Councilor Pachati.
Yes. At this point, no other council business, because I think we're going to have plenty of business coming up.
I think so.
It's going to be time-consuming, but, I mean, it's stuff, what you're talking about is good, because several years ago, we had actually done, not really this type of stuff, but we did a lot of work around the town, setting up, doing planting and, all that. And we had an awful lot of people that were working on that, and that, unfortunately, it all kind of disappeared after a period of time. But we did have, a lot of things going on that were similar to that, so, yeah.
Nice.
I think it'll work well.
Good. I appreciate the support on that end, and actually with your the history, it's great. Stephanie.
Just some thank yous. First of all, to Public Works for all the fine work that they've done to help keep our roads clear during this winter. And I know now that we're heading into spring and there's potholes and a lot of sand. So I do appreciate what they're doing, and I want to thank them. And I'd also like to thank Chief Gould for the time and effort, as well as the town manager, for going down to Augusta to advocate for our young people and the situation that we've been in. And I hope that this is something that will be continued to talk about at the state level and our needs heard. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilor McDonald.
Yeah, just real quick, and what brought it to mind was a newspaper article the other day. If we could get an update, if there's been any progress on the ambulance situation, have we done anything with that since the last meeting?
Not since your last meeting, no.
Okay.
I have not done anything. I don't know if the chief is actually working on something, but I haven't done
Okay.
anything since your last meeting.
All right, because, I mean, there's a lot of towns that are in the same boat. The state or Augusta is starting to get involved in it now, making monies available. I think there's some opportunity there if we just continue to push forward on this and come up with a solution.
Is there something you would like to see us do?
Well, yes. I would like to maybe talk with Oakland, see what they're planning. Get a
They're
feel.
signing up with Delta.
I know they are, because they felt that they're in the same boat
Everybody
as
does.
Fairfield
Yep.
is. Now,
Everybody does.
there's a possibility that there's opportunity here where we can form a partnership with Oakland
Yep.
and maybe come out of this. Or maybe with the state money that's going to become available over the next year, there might be a possibility of another company express an interest to come in the area.
Might be.
But we won't know if somebody isn't continuing to ask. And I don't know whether that falls under
So that would be,
Chief-
actually, I'd
Chief-
say that's going to be Michelle
Chief
as the town
Gould
manager.
or you, Michelle. I don't know whose
So it's always a part of our conversation when we talk to people. It's not, I mean, we don't pick up the phone every day and call and say, what do you do with your ambulance? But it is a part of what we do and every time we talk to someone. So one of the things we'll be working on is a regional working group. There's also a community determination grant that you can actually get through the state that will be funded by them to assess your municipality. What do you need? We've discussed doing that collectively as member municipalities. So these are things that are always works in progress. They just, it's not a every single day conversation because we have
Right,
other things to do
and I
too, but-
understand. I'm
Yeah,
just
but
kind
that stuff's
of looking for,
been going on for quite some time.
but there's no
Solution
progress.
at this time.
So there may be, but so sometimes.
Or you just,
Well, it's gonna
you can't
take a
say in
while.
public. I mean, I'm asking the question.
Some of it we don't discuss in public because we're in the middle of negotiations and conversations, right? So things are beginning to evolve, and you don't ever want to make a conversation that says, you know, I talked to this municipality about this, and then it's a surprise to their town
Yeah,
council.
no.
So there are things that until they're finalized and worked out, we don't discuss them publicly. But it is a ongoing work in progress, and it's been something that we've been working on long before Delta came to see you to give you your presentation.
So-
It's been worked on for quite some time.
So how do we go about being updated on this stuff?
So as things change and evolve, we'll tell you. I'll tell you. As we think we're getting to a point where where it's time to have an actual conversation. But if you want to know if I've talked to someone throughout the course of the week, feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email. But some of it we just don't talk about in the public because of how negotiations work.
And I understand the way negotiation
Yep.
works. It's awful easy to throw 100 grand at this, buy a year's time, put it on the back burner, and then we're right back where we are. here
It
again.
would be easy if that's how we operated, but it's
Yeah,
not,
it's
so
not,
it won't,
yeah.
that's
So I
not what's
think
gonna
that's
happen.
one, I think, and I think it's always good to ask questions, but I think it's also one we have to trust, and we have to allow people that we trust to do their jobs, allow them to do their jobs. But then also, when we come back in a year and we're being asked for another 100,000, then we'll probably be screaming. So that's, so I think, and I think Michelle understands that.
Yep.
The other thing I think that people are fully aware of is the fact that we have a year's contract with Delta, and that's what they have set up. So the carrot hanging over our head is that this year, we've got to get some information. So it's not going to go to waste and be put on the back burner, because this is something very important to our community.
Right.
And so the town manager and the fire chief,
Right.
for the past few years, have been talking things over, and this is right at the front.
And also, too, just remind the residents out there, too, this is being paid by ARPA funds. It will not raise our mill rate
For this year.
or
And I understand
taxation.
that.
So
That's not a
that's-
solution.
That's a
No,
lot
but-
of, that's what a lot of seniors I heard from seniors and other residents during the weekend.
Yeah.
Saying they were a little confused about the ARPA went out, saying, our taxes are going up. It's not. This is going to be ARPA fund money, mill rate will not be
Right.
going up.
For our community. I don't know what other communities are doing,
Well,
but we
right.
decided to use
Correct.
our
Yeah,
money.
and it's an aspect that all the communities at this point, where it's not just us, everybody is in the same situation. So it's something that particularly, I mean, we've got basically a strong 4 larger community area, and it's going to be a matter of all 4 towns plus all the other smaller towns around moving in, working with each other, and coming to a point.
I think so.
Right. And it's a slow process.
Well,
So we're not going to have an answer right away.
No, and I
It
wasn't
has to
looking for an
evolve.
answer. The reason why I was asking the question more than anything, and I'm fairly new at this, I'll admit,
You're learning fast, though.
Okay.
Gary. You're coming.
but the 3 or 4 months that I've been participating in this, every time that came up, we're working on it, we're working on it.
And it
then
does.
when we come right to the door, well, we have no choice.
Because-
We have to do this. I want to make sure that we're not there again. That's all.
And you're going to be the guardian of that, I can tell.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Because I made a pretty
You're
good
committed.
commitment to somebody, and I says, no matter what, we won't leave you without an ambulance service. And I have every
Right.
intention of sticking to my word.
But the way the system works is you have to have the dialogues, and it's
Yeah.
not just us with one other municipality. It's a regional aspect,
Right.
because we're all affected. And so, like Michelle said, you can't go and talk about this out in public, and because you don't know what other
Right.
people are saying in the
Some
other
people might
communities.
tell it out perspective too, and might turn it around saying, then come back at you saying, okay, this is happening, I want the truth.
Yep. And I don't have any intentions of talking about this in public.
But this,
I just would like to be updated on the progress.
but this
Say,
is
it's
public.
in progress.
That's
Right.
And talk to Michelle, call her, she'll fill you in. But so much of it is not for public information.
Right.
And that's because of the negotiation aspect of it. And it seems to slow things down, but it's a necessity.
It might
That has
hurt
to
the
happen.
situation too, if anything get leaks out too early.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, now, that works the other way, too. That's a two-sided coin, you know. If you drag this on and go too slow, you're behind everybody else that's looking for a solution. The idea is to get a solution first. Be first to the table so you get the best.
It might hurt you too,
And you have to move quickly to do that.
but
And I don't dispute that, but
Well, I think-
again, you're going to be the guardian on this. And, you know, I think within 3 months, 6 months, we're going to be a lot closer to having an answer before that
takes
year's
time.
contract is up, next June 30th,
Yeah. I just,
whatever it is.
We'll get there.
Valid points, and anything else?
Yep.
We will get there.
that's it.
Oh, that's good. No. Counselor Lawrence?
yes. Also, on March 31st, I want to thank, congratulations to the Lawrence basketball team. March 31st, there'll be an alumni game at the Lawrence High School. This year's state champions against 2015 state champions. Benefit for championship rings for the girls.
I'm sorry, benefit for what?
Benefit for the 2023 Lawrence High School championship team to get championship rings.
Yep, they're doing the
I
rings.
still-
The ring
Championship
champ-
rings.
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 Thank you.
That's at 6:30 at the Lawrence High School gym.
I'm all stuffed up, I can't hear well.
So all the alumni will be there, even the cheerleaders will be there.
Should be a good time.
Yes, it will be.
Yeah.
Also, too, I want to wish this special lady of mine happy birthday. My wife's birthday is today. I want to wish my wife a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Carolyn.
She's got to be a saint.
That's it.
So, thank you, Peter. For myself, actually, my biggest positive is actually talking about those working groups tonight. That gives me a lot of excitement and wind in my sails as we move forward this year. So that's my biggest thing. So thanks so much. I think at this point, I should announce that the next regular meeting of the Fairfield Town Council will be held on Wednesday, April 12th, to be held as a hybrid meeting in our council chambers and via Zoom at 6:30 p.m. At this point, I'd like to have a motion for recess.
Motion to have recess.
Second.
So we shall recess.
John, you've got the signatures.